howdy, hey everyone. This is Matt and Jordan doing interesting, fun little video that we're trying out. We're doing some new mediums, having fun, and we're making something fun for you guys.
We're hoping that you guys are going to enjoy it. It's going to be a little different. It definitely gets Jordan and I a little out of our comfort zone. And so bear with us as we go through this fun experiment. But like Jordan's saying, we're hoping that this will be something that will encourage you, build you up, be some fun. We're going to have some fun things along the way. And we will be asking and hoping for a lot of interaction as we go through this format.
Yeah, one of the things that is going to be unique to us is we're going to have three different segments that's going to happen each time we try and do an episode. We're going to have a segment that starts off with just the question of the week. That would just be something that's on my heart, your heart, maybe something I find on Reddit, maybe something I find somewhere else, or even down in the comments if one of our youth students has a question on their hearts.
I mean, I know the youth group comes up with great questions, so I'm hoping that we'll have some of those. I expect that we'll have some really good ones. But yeah, like you said, I mean, all over the place, there's so many questions in this world. And we won't be able to answer them all, but we're going to do the best we can to just enjoy and just share what we think and what God's prompting us in that.
Yeah, so the next segment that we're going to plan on doing is just story from our lives. It's just going to be what's something that's happened to each of us, whether that was something that happened while we were in the ministry, while you were doing youth worker work, while I was just being a part of youth and doing college ministry, just something from our lives of what that looks like.
And in that, I mean, it's going to be, we're going to be sharing stories. I love to talk youth. I love to tell stories. And then, Jesus used so many stories and parables in his life. That's kind of where we get a little bit of this because, Jordan and I, we're not holier than thou. We don't know everything, don't have all the answers. What we do have is we have a couple of years on you guys, a couple of more experiences, and we can share some of those to be able to say, hey, this is a good idea. This could be a path that works out. And we can also share, hey, I went down that path. I got cut, bloody, bruised, and all sorts of beat up. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We share it, and then you get to choose what you do with that. For some of you, it might stick. For some of you, it won't. But along the way, we hope you get a laugh out of it.
Yeah, sometimes the stories are going to be pretty funny of sometimes me getting hurt, sometimes maybe you getting hurt. And other times it'll be a little bit more serious, maybe just some stuff that we've actually heard from students or stuff that we're really struggling with. It's going to be kind of a range, and we'll just see how the episodes go in the future, just to what the stories come out. The last segment that we'll be doing is probably going to be one of my favorites, as we're going to be doing this thing called Choose It or Lose It. And we're basically going to come each week with 3 topics each that we're going to either decide to choose it or lose it. So it'll be some random topical thing. Choosing it will be say, yeah, I agree with that, or I would pick that. I would continue to do that, or lose it would be like, no, kick it to the curb. I want that gone. Get it away. Get it out of here. I disagree with everything that is. That's what choose it or lose it.
It's not exactly going to be any middle ground. It's going to be taking that definite stance on one thing or another, and make sure. I mean, and like Jordan's saying, we're gonna have some fun ones.
Yeah.
We're gonna have some serious ones. We're gonna have a lot more fun ones. And in that, it's just going to be, just kind of having some fun. We'd love for you guys in the comments to, if we come up with that topic, share with us. Would you choose it or lose it? And see what you have to say. So.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of our hot takes, as some people say. Well,
you young cool kids.
I'm only 25 or 24. Well, let's just go ahead and get right to it. Well, Matt, so we're going to start off with our question of the week. Like we said earlier, it's just a question that's been on our hearts. That's something we want to talk about. And this being our very first episode, we wanted to share something that was personal about our lives. And the thing that we unanimously came to is, well, we need to share our testimonies. So, no further, Matt, what is your testimony?
So I was born and raised in El Paso. I grew up as a homeschooler, and first subject every day was Bible study. I did that up until I was about 10. When I was 10, I started going to a Bible study fellowship program, which was a 7-year course that was a lot more Bible study. And so grew up with God's Word, grew up being active in the church. I started getting active around 9 or 10 when we started going to church. But even when we weren't active, we were studying the Bible and we were studying who God was. And around the age of 12, I began to struggle with that because I was plugged into a great, great church. A lot of spirit-filled people, even though we were a very traditional denomination, we were an Episcopal church. We still had spirit-filled people there. And I struggled with trusting people. And some of these people would talk to me about these weird experiences, like God spoke to them, God gave them visions, they saw angels, they had these things that happened in life, and it was like, man, I think you're a little crazy before you get to the sacramental wine, because when we did that, when we would do communion, which was every Sunday, we used real wine. I thought, man, if you're experiencing that, why aren't I? I pray every night. I study God's Word. I knew more at that age, at around 12. I knew more about God than some of the adults that went to my church, which also scared me. I'm like, as a 12-year-old, I should not be knowing more than adults about anything. And I did. And I'm like, okay. So I started to wrestle with my faith life. Is there a God? If there is, who is he? Are there multiple gods?
Yeah.
So I began to explore that for the next 3 years. During that time, I was still a goody two-shoe, going to church, being a Sunday school teacher, volunteering, and doing all sorts of stuff. I spent more hours at the church than I did in my own home at some weeks. And in all of that, at 15, I joined my youth group, and on my third visit, I go on a retreat. To this day, I don't know exactly why I did or how I did, because this would be the first trip I go out of state. We were in El Paso, so that's arguably Texas, and we went to Cloudcroft, New Mexico. And in that, I didn't know anyone. I had no relationship with anyone. I basically get asked by a pretty girl who I already knew to go on this retreat. She's going to, on the day of, change her mind, and she's not going to go, so I will be going. And from that point, I knew one person, and that was it. That was on that retreat. I'm like, great. So still don't know why I was there, because, again, I didn't trust people, and I'm going with a bunch of strangers to go spend several days doing God knows what, and with a bunch of people who I don't have any idea of. And on that weekend, I'm going to experience Jesus, because in that process, he meets me in a very personable way. And how that works, what meant a lot to me is at 12, I'm like, okay, God, if you really are the God of the Bible, you say in your word that you're a God of relationship, you're a God of love, that you want to be involved in our lives, and that we are supposed to be active with you. So I need, if you are the God of the Bible, if you do exist, I need you to meet me in a personable way. And he meets me in one of the most incredible ways I think that was possible. And not only that, I was struggling with purpose in my life. And he comes in and he not only meets me in a personable way, but then he gives me the cherry on top and says, and here's your purpose. From there at 15, I'm like, okay, I'm all in. I still have questions, I still have concerns, but he met me in a personal way. He showed me who he is. He showed me that he exists. He showed me the way. And once I knew the way, I was able to just keep on going, and haven't stopped following him since.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I know that I've had a similar situation where I've gone to a camp not knowing a single person there and just feeling so uncomfortable and a little isolated. And that, I mean, you know, you're going there to learn about Jesus, but in the midst of all of that, you're still feeling alone whenever you're talking about a God who's supposed to be right there next to you, but you're still feeling like you're by yourself in the midst of all of that. That's incredible, man, that you had that personal conversation with God, and we're just able to say, hey, I need you to do this. You need to be a part of this. And he answered, and that's amazing.
Well, and that's the awesome thing about our God. He tells us, hey, I mean, it's all in his word of, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is how we do it. All you have to do is, when you know it, you can use it. It's like using a wrench. If you don't know how to use a wrench, well, then you're probably not going to use it right, or it's not going to go well. But if you do, you can make things happen.
Yeah.
And that's our God. And he tells us he loves us, he cares about us, and he wants a relationship. And he's happy with you to say, come on, bring all your thoughts, fears, and concerns. So how about you, Jordan? Tell me about your testimony on how do you meet Jesus?
Yeah, let's see. Goodness gracious. Well, first off, thank you, Matt, for sharing that testimony. I really appreciate that. And I guess kind of similar to you, where you had a lot of questions. That was kind of the same path that I followed. I mean, I was mostly born and raised inside a Southern Baptist church. My mother and father were just very big on me being a part of the church. My dad, for a long time, was going for a seminary degree and was volunteering as a youth pastor. And then after he had finished his degree, he became a chaplain. So both of my parents were very religious. And that definitely rubbed off on me. With how much that they spent in the church, I was there too. So whenever I actually tried to remember what it was like for me back then, it starts off whenever I was probably around in Sunday school, so maybe like, what is that, fourth or third grade?
Depending on your church, yeah.
Yeah, I guess depending on your church. I think I was around 9 years old, 10 years old. I started going to Sunday school. It was the typical Sunday school where we would have to try and memorize the books of the Bible, where we would have to learn about these new stories and things like that. But I knew there was quite a big difference between what I would learn at Sunday school and then what I would learn in quote unquote big church. And I felt like there was just two different stories being told, and I was like hearing all these fun stories from the Old Testament while I was in Sunday school, but then learning about this Jesus guy while I was in big church, and I kind of wanted to know more about what this Jesus guy was all about and what these stories had to do with really anything. So instead of me doing that inside of the Sunday school I was going to, I ended up just coming forward to the assistant pastor at the church at the time. His name was Keith. I don't know if he'll be listening to this at any point. But I come up to him and I just tell him that I have questions and that I just want to know who this Jesus guy is and why I need to care about him and why he's so important. So that started me on a journey of about a month and a half of, instead of every Sunday going to Sunday school, I'd just go and sit in his office and then we would just talk and I would ask a whole range of questions. That's where I first learned about the bridge diagram, like the two cliffs and the bridge in the middle. And I specifically remember him drawing that whole thing out, drawing the bridge, saying that most people are on this side, God's on the other. Where do you find yourself on the bridge? And I just remember getting asked that question and just being like, well, I think I'm about right here, but maybe not that step, maybe a little forward. And at the end of the day, I just started to learn about, okay, well, now I know why Jesus is so important, why I need to have this relationship with him, because that ultimately leads me to this chance of being with God, to this son that has died for me, and realizing what that meant for me. Those meetings helped, but at the end of it, I didn't come to the decision to commit myself to Christ. It wasn't until the year that started, I went to the middle school summer camp. And on one of the worship nights, on the end of the day, the head pastor speaker who was talking, just was able to talk very clear and I was able to listen and understand, okay, no, this guy's super important. He really died for me. He has came into my life, and I need to follow him because it's just this is what I have. This is who I am. Jesus Christ. I mean, goodness, he his death, love, and resurrection is what put a smile on my face that night. And I was fortunate enough that Keith had gone to that summer camp, and I went up to him at the end, pulled him aside, and said, "Hey, I want to commit myself to Christ. I think I fully understand what you're talking about. I fully understand the love of Christ." 3 weeks later, I'm back at church and I'm up at the front asking to get baptized, and a couple weeks later, I'm getting baptized in him. And it was just a joyous time of realizing who Jesus Christ was, why he's so important, realizing that the love that he has for me is the love that he has for everybody else. And that the free gift is always there waiting to be taken. And I just needed the push to understand what the gift even was and why I needed to take it. And that's kind of how I came to Christ. There's a lot more to how I got to where I'm at now, but we'll probably talk about that in another episode.
That probably will. And
Yeah.
man, that's really cool. Because in your story, I'm hearing a couple of things. Number one, a lot of strong men in your life, men of God, who had an influence. You talked about your father, who went to seminary, was a youth pastor, becoming a chaplain, and that kind of being a early on lifelong guide in your life. But then you also had a pastor who you were able to go to and just riddle with questions. And just for those who are listening, especially youth, yes, youth pastors, we love questions. So if you find someone who doesn't want to answer questions, there's probably a little issue there. But man, don't hesitate to ask questions, because it's real. We know that it's something that you're going through, and man, we might have an answer, we might not. But I think it's awesome that you had someone that you could, and that did answer. It seems like a lot of questions. Do you remember any of those questions?
I think it was mostly the questions, like I said, like, who is this Jesus guy, and why do I need to care about him? Like, what does he? Why is there Jesus and then there's also God? Like, why is there two separate people, and why does believing in one dying for me mean that I get to go to God? What is that equal, and how does that make sense? I don't even think at that point I was realizing what the Holy Spirit was. So I know that we had talked about the Trinity and what that means. But yeah, I was just so confused as to why there's two different people, and he's the Son of Man. I mean, he's the Son of God, but he also is God. And it, of course, in true Trinity fashion, it was very confusing for a 10-year-old.
It's confusing for 90-year-olds. I mean, it's a hard thing to fully grasp. I don't think we ever do on this side of heaven. But man, those are some good conversations. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super impactful, and I mean, to this day, Keith has been a key figure in my life and a big father figure for myself. Yeah,
that's awesome. You did good, Keith. You did good.
Okay, well, we'll move on to our next topic.
So we're going to be sharing some stories. This is going to be a little bit of a story time.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about stories of kind of what we've seen in our life. Now, I know I've been a youth pastor for a little while, youth leader, and a swim coach, soccer coach. I've got a little bit life group leader. So I've got some there. Jordan did a lot of college ministry for a while. He's new to the youth world, but already has some good stories. And then we were both active in our own youth groups, so we'll be touching on some of those and just kind of other stories of just life in ministry, I think, is kind of a way of putting it, right?
Yeah, and I think that also extends to the story that I'm going to be talking about today, which is when I was in youth group.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So get ready, guys. Jordan pulled when he was in youth group?
Well, it's nothing too special, but there's just this one. I'll just get into it. Basically, whenever I was in youth group, one of the most central things in all youth group is summer camp.
Yep.
That's the biggest event. That's the funnest time. That's when you're gonna have the most interactions, and that's where we're always now after the fact talking about the weary of getting high on Christ and then realizing what it's like to come right back down and not having that super spiritual connection all the time. But man, summer camp is a huge and amazing thing. And while I was a youth, I got to go to this summer camp up in Oklahoma called Falls Creek. That was the camp that I think we went to 5 years in a row until I think it was my senior year that we stopped doing it. But this was around my freshman year in high school that we were going over to this camp. And it's in Oklahoma, and the church that I went to is down south in Texas, so this is a 7-hour drive. Luckily, we were fortunate enough to, while we were going to Falls Creek, we had the big giant charter bus, because we would fill that up with probably about 40, 50, 55, 60 people going to youth camp. And at this point, I can share this now, but one of the things that happened with my group, the youth group, is while I was a part of it, I went through about 5 different youth pastors. We can get into that more as the days go on. But for right now, this story, I'm talking about this youth pastor, Neil Hicks. He was the youth pastor at the time. He was this super buff, fresh out of the army chaplain that was ready to share the love of Christ with students. So whenever he came in and he took us all to Falls Creek, this was one of the very first things that we got to see him in. He was like a new hire right at the beginning of summer. And he comes in and he's probably about the size of me, but maybe a couple. So I'm about 5'6". This guy's about 5'8", but he's like massively buff and very intimidating to look at. But he's just like the cuddly bear whenever you get to know him on the inside. And so we're going over to Falls Creek, and one of the biggest things about this summer camp is they have sports games. So they'll do basketball. I love the sports games. They have basketball, volleyball, baseball, and with our
Don't say that too much right now, man. This is a hurt season with COVID being on. None of that exists.
Well, so. This was the brighter times in the early 2005 or no, that would have been 10 at that point. Oh man, 2010 or something. With those beautiful days, coronavirus free. And with a group our size, we could sign up for volleyball. So we did volleyball every single year. That was our big thing, is to go and compete in the volleyball competition, because they had a bracket system, kind of like the March Madness kind of bracket system. Okay. So we had specific days that we had to play in specific games, and we were only allowed to have one youth leader on the team. The rest had to consist of all youth students. So, of course, starting this brand new summer camp, we had to bring in Neil, the super buff, most likely super athletic guy, onto our team. We go in, we're starting to play volleyball. I'm terrible at volleyball, by the way. I just love playing the game, but I'm not good at hitting the ball at any point. I just like having a reason to dive and to jump and like look like I'm doing something cool, but it definitely doesn't work out. I like that option, and that's what volleyball gives me. But there was this one time where the volleyball, I think we were right in the middle of the game. Volleyball comes over towards me. I decide, you know what? Instead of me putting my hands together and hitting it up like a normal person would, I'm just gonna punch the volleyball, because the instinctually in my head is, as it's coming towards me, I'm just gonna bam. So it comes right towards me. I just one-handed punch it. That ends up hitting on like the right side of my hand, which then causes the ball to fly to the right side. And where the volleyball court was, it was right next to the baseball field, which had a fence around it. So the volleyball basically went right over the fence.
So you got a home run in volleyball.
Basically. But so as we're looking, we're just like, oh man, and it's a pretty big fence. It's probably one of those like 7 foot, 10 foot fences. That's not really easy just to go around. But then we hear Neil just yell. And I was worried that he was yelling like in rage or something like that I just did because I just punched this volleyball over. No, it's because Neil is yelling because he's sprinting towards the fence and one fatal move, not fatal, and one sweeping move.
Okay, much better, thank you. I was like, oh gosh, what happens?
He jumps, grabs the gate, flips himself over, lands on his 2 front feet, grabs the volleyball, chunks it over, and then does the same maneuver on the other side to get back over. And we look at that and we're just like, what the heck is this guy on? Like, what? How did he do this? Like, goodness gracious.
He's high on the Holy Spirit, obviously.
But something. And at the end of whenever the game ended, I think we ended up losing, sadly. But what happened in that moment, with the first time that I really got to interact with the youth pastor Neil, is I kind of was like, man, he's like a superhero. Like, he just, like, there's the stories of superheroes doing jump over a building in a single leap. This guy, Neil, he just jumped over this fence in a single leap. Like, he just took this whole thing and he mowed it down. And I was just so surprised by this guy. And from there on, I started to think of Neil as kind of like this superhero kind of guy. And then developing more in our relationship, I really got to know he was just like a super soldier, but for Christ, like Captain America, but instead of carrying a shield, he carries a Bible. And it was just really cool and awesome to just get to know him. Because in every way that he kept himself fit, he also kept his brain fit and with the knowledge of the Lord. And it was just really unique and cool to have somebody that was just so physically put together, but also mentally and spiritually put together. And then to have that as somebody that I can look up to. And to see, man, this is my youth pastor. This is my superhero of a youth pastor. I don't need to be afraid whenever he's around, kind of a thing. I don't know. That's kind of like my story, my tale from when I was in youth, of just sharing. Man, there's some real, like, youth pastors. Matt, you're a youth pastor. There's times where they'll look at you as like, man, this guy's a superhero. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's got us taken care of. When things go south, he knows what to do, he knows how to do it, and how to get things done. Yeah, I just think youth pastors are some awesome heroes, I guess, is the gist of my story.
Well, that's awesome to hear, and that's also definitely God, because from being behind the scenes with a lot of youth pastors and hearing some stories where they got to be the Neil for someone, man, most of us are flying by the seat of their pants and we don't know what the heck we're doing. I mean, there's so many times I've talked to a youth pastor, and they're just like, yeah, so this situation came up. I had no idea what to do. I'm a 21, 22-year-old kid, and this big thing happens. Like, I know just one. I'm probably my story today, but young guy, 22, I think is when he was. He's the youth pastor, and he needs to go and remove a demon from some guy, and he's just like, say what? And he got to just share that with me about going to this place, meeting this guy that he had just met, going with his wife who he just married, and praying for this guy, removing a demon, and it's just like, he's just like, the whole time I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is where I feel like you're prompting, and this is what I'm doing, and it all worked out great. But it's just like, wow, it's awesome to hear, and it's awesome to know that God can use even us.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. But yeah, well, what about you, Matt? What's your tale? What's your story?
Well, so you're talking about your youth pastor. I'm going to have to talk about mine a little bit.
Okay.
So I come from a youth group. When I was there, my youth group was 100 senior high and about 40 junior high.
Holy
and
moly.
so we had a youth pastor, and I'm putting quotation marks up, who was like over the youth. And then we had someone who was directly under them that was also kind of like a youth pastor.
Okay.
And then we had at least 20 to 30 different volunteer leaders. We had a church school ministry to where we would get some interns so they would have on-the-job training. So we had some people like that were college students that were here specifically to learn to become youth pastors. We had some parents that were volunteers. So we had a whole wide variety of people. We had a student leaders program where once you were a junior in high school, you were getting trained and developed. You got to take on some of these roles and options in that. So I'm going to be calling my youth pastor at this time a crazy redhead guy named Yaden. Yaden, yes.
Oh boy,
and
that's
man,
a name.
this guy. the name matched the guy because you looked at him. He had long red hair at the time, a long red beard. He was about 5'11", 6 foot, like Keith, just ripped. And man, this guy, he was hysterical. He was great. I loved him. We did not start off on the best foot because for about the first 6 months, as he's trying to get me into youth group, he keeps calling me by the wrong name. He'd see me at church and he'd go, "Hey, Martin. Hey, Melvin. Hey, Arthur." I mean, when the last time he saw me before I joined the youth group, he called me by my brother's name, which is Ian. I mean, Ian and Matt. I mean, come on, Matt's not exactly a hard name here.
Yeah, but Yeaton though.
Yaden, yeah.
Yaden,
yeah.
Not Yeaton.
Great, and the last name Smith. I mean, it was complicated on the front end, but that did a good parody because watching him, because he's going to be there throughout my 4 or 5 years of being in this youth group. I got to see a lot of different sides of Yaden. And so one of the first one is obviously his memory was horrible when it came to names. The next one was, getting to see him at youth group. I already shared in my testimony how I start coming to youth group in the last couple of weeks. And getting to see him there, he's fit, he's athletic. We go on this retreat. One of the things I noticed is every day he'd wake up and he'd go on a run. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of like your typical guy. He's trying to stay in shape. He's athletic. In my mind, he's a guy's guy. And then I think it was that Saturday night, he let the girls straighten his hair. His long, flowing red mane, he just let these girls straighten it. And I was sitting there I was a homeschooler, so I was definitely on the sheltered side. I'm like, no guy with any decency is going to let a bunch of girls straighten his hair. I mean,
man.
Yeah, I wasn't all right in my head back then.
Homeschoolers, man.
Homeschoolers. Well, he was homeschooled too. Yeah, he was. Okay. So I'm just like, what? And throughout his time, I got to see this guy who would show up and be genuine and honest and real. I could see him in these strong moments. I could see him in these tender moments. God, he was goofy. He was one of the goofiest guys I ever met. But along the whole way, he gives me an example in my time. And really what I think stands out to me a little bit is, fast forwarding a few years, I joined the student leaders program. And on that, because I'm on this group, I'm able to come to youth leader meetings, and some youth were bringing up some concerns to me specifically. And I would share them at this meeting. Well, this happens for a few times in a row. And one of the things that really stood out to me about Yaden was, as I'm doing this, he goes, "So, Matt, you brought this up several times. Why aren't they bringing this up to us? Because they only talk to you. Why do they keep bringing it to you, and then you keep coming back to us, and when we talk to them, everything's fine?" And he helped me realize, he goes, "Do you think that you're fighting a battle that's not yours to fight?" And in my personality, I'm definitely a defender. I'm definitely want to help people.
Yeah.
And because these people were feeling this way, okay, I wanted to help them because they were kind of on the fringe, so to speak. They were kind of on, they were in the group, but they weren't part of the kind of group, And he asked me that question, is this your battle to fight? And that question has stood with me ever since then about, is that the case? Is this just because I see a situation, just because I see something going on, is it my place to intervene? I got to see these awesome moments in this guy, and some of these he doesn't even know that it had an impact on me. One of the coolest things to the story is, I graduate, I go to A&M, we lose contact. Well, about 3 or 4 years into me being a youth pastor, I give him a call. I said, hey, Yaden, I'm a youth pastor. And I try to model myself after you. And that meant a lot to him. Because as a youth pastor, I don't get to hear the end of the story often with people. And I'll have youth when they're wild and crazy, and they're doing some silly stuff, some stupid stuff sometimes. And then to come back and have that closure, so to speak. Because if Yaden never hears from me, we're still friends on Facebook, and we still are slightly in touch. That's a story that he knows that he had an impact on. Because we don't know the impact that we do have on each other.
Yeah.
Whether it could be a youth leader, it could be as a youth. There are so many, but our God puts us into this story together in different seasons of our lives. And sometimes we are able to have an effect without even knowing it. And being able to just demonstrate what is it like to be, fun and funny, but serious and wise.
Yeah.
All those things wrapped up into one, demonstrating for someone who thinks they have all the right answers and clearly didn't at the age of, teenage years.
Oh boy. Man, Matt, yeah, having that chance just to talk with Yeaton, or Yaten, I keep saying Yeaton.
Don't yeet him.
No, I'm not gonna yeet. With Yaten, and just being like, hey, you really had an impact on myself, on who I am. I know that there's plenty of gentlemen in my life that had that same kind of an impact that I've had to have that conversation with, of just like, thank you for being that father figure, for being that spiritual leader, for being that person to care for me and love me, and then give me a good man of God model to follow. Yeah, that's a huge impact that I know that he had on you. And just know, Matt, you're having plenty of that same impact on people like me to this day, and other students and people that you've worked with.
Appreciate it, Jordan. I'm looking forward to your stories here soon.
Oh, yeah. We'll see what happens. But, man, Matt, that's amazing to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and head into the last segment of our little episode here.
Saving the best for last.
Well, it may not be the best. There's some pretty good stories, and our testimonies are amazing, Matt.
They are, but
yes. Knowing
the youth, this is probably what they're going to be interested in.
Yeah, that may be what they keep tuning into. Who knows? I don't know. It depends. We're doing Choose It or Lose It. It's where we just come with about 3 topics each on, hey, what's your hot take on this subject? Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and kick it off. You want me to start it, man?
Go for it, man.
Okay, I gotta ask, and I know I'm putting a time step on this. Are you choosing it or losing it on coronavirus?
Oh, man.
On COVID-19.
COVID-19.
On the Rona, as some people say.
The Rona. So, man, I would definitely, I'm going to go with the lose it, but I'm going to give the disclaimer of, although this has been a horrible thing, and it has definitely had a huge impact on the world, I've been able to see a lot of good things come from this. Being able to see churches work in ways they have not traditionally have. People being able to outreach and be neighbors like they haven't been in a while. So I've seen some good things out of it. But at the end of the day, man, I am so ready for this to be over. I am so ready to get back to normal life, quotation marks, and being able to interact and be with people, see the youth face to face, go play games again. Good Lord, get sports back on television, and to get back into a normal swing of things.
No, yeah, I totally get. Yeah, I'd have to say, I'm definitely wanting to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot that has come that you can see as good. I know that for us here at Solid Rock Church, we've transitioned to streaming and what that looks like. I mean, if it wasn't for the Rona virus, we probably wouldn't even be doing this video.
Nope.
Because we have to be able to find new ways and new mediums to reach our students and show them the love of Christ and tell them the stories of what's going on in our lives. Uh, but man, just seeing a lot of the hurt that it does have on people, a lot with the unemployment, a lot of people worried about where they're going to be getting money, whether they're going to be able to live, about everybody being extremely cautious about who they come in contact with. Yeah, it's I've definitely been on the end of I've had some hard conversations with people that are very much ready for this just to be over, because they really just want a hug, and I so badly want to give them a hug. Yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna lose it. I don't know if anybody would choose it.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But so, as you're getting into youth ministry,
Mm-hmm.
one of the skills that youth pastors have to have
Oh no.
is being able to play video games.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to ask you, choose it or lose it about Fortnite.
Oh, okay, Matt. Now, I don't want to alienate our audience on this first episode. Okay, legit, I'm losing it.
Okay.
I think Fortnite. Well, do I want to lose it? Okay. I'm gonna choose it. I'm switching to a choose
switching
it.
sides. Okay,
I'm switching to a choose
switch in it.
And where I'm switching, but for different reasons. So I'm choosing it because the game itself has been able to be a outlet for many people to be able to connect. I know that I think me and you were talking about earlier today that on Fortnite, somebody on Xbox can play with somebody on PS4 who's playing on PC and their friends on a mobile phone. Like all four people can play together at once. And it's a huge outlet for friends and family just to come together and play a game, especially considering that it's free. I know that there's a lot of money that can be put into it with all the skins and all the gliders and even loading screens. There's a lot of things in it, and I don't choose to play the game, mostly because I am very bad at the building mechanic, and I think that's just a high ceiling that I don't really want to conquer yet. I kind of just like going around and shooting and not really worrying about building a giant fort. But I will still choose it on the fact that it's a fantastic game, and the people who have made it have done a really good job of continuing building it and making something new on it almost every month. It changes constantly, whether it's the map, whether it's more skins, whether it's a battle pass, whether it's the way that you get health and shields or whatever it is. It's constantly changing, and I think that's been pretty cool for a lot of people. So, I'm choosing it.
Okay.
How about you, Matt?
Man, you make lots of great points for it. And like you said, it's a great system that a lot of people have enjoyed. They do a great job. They have a lot of affection for it. They put a lot into it. Some great components, but man, I'm gonna say lose it on the sake of like you said, I'm not the building type.
Yeah.
And with the skins, with all that stuff, that's just not my game style. Now, that's my game style. It's not to say that it's not a good game, because God knows everyone around the world has basically heard of Fortnite. There's tribes in Africa who don't know civilization that have heard of Fortnite. I mean, everyone knows about it. It's obviously a well-made game. It's well played, very popular. But I just can't. That's just not one of the games that I would prefer or choose to play. Again, based on my own gaming style and my own personality.
On a side tangent, I probably would choose something more like Apex or Modern Warfare, Warzone, or something like that. That'd be more my speed, but Fortnite as a platform is pretty great. So going from that, let's continue a little bit of this video game talk.
Uh-oh.
I want to know your hot take on esports.
On esports, okay. Man, I think that right now I'm just about desperate to see any type of a sport. Someone, I forget who the other day said something about, yeah, I was watching these players and I'm just like, you're seeing a sport right now? Tell me what it is. I don't care whatever sport it is, I'm watching.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now with esports, I think that I know you've been helping me to be able to get a little bit more into some of the MODAs and some of the main leagues right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I have another friend that does the VR league.
Yeah.
And does that, which is super, super cool.
Mm-hmm.
And just being able to see, that's one of the few things that I know that I'm watching a little bit of in esports is just the FIFA E-League.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting my soccer fix in. So I would definitely choose it. I think it's really innovative. I think it's, it's good entertainment. I can't imagine nor comprehend what it takes to get into that because, I remember when I was a kid and my mom was getting on me for playing video games for hours at a time. It's like, it's not like you can make a job out of this. This isn't ever going to be a life skill. And now there's professionals, there's a whole league based around it playing any type of video game, not just a sports game, but shooters, MODAs, Dotas, MMOs. There's just people just streaming it live.
Yeah.
It's a source of income. And so, for an E-League, I like the organization, I like the competition, and I like I like the officiating and just the commentary. So there's so much to it that I'm in, so I definitely would choose it.
I'll continue that ride, and I will definitely choose it. I know for myself, so I like sports games, but I say sports games. Mostly, I enjoy watching and playing baseball, and that's about it.
Okay.
I like the freedom of not having a clock on the game, and you just play until 9 innings, and then you're done. And if there's extra innings, then hey, you're in for a ride. That's some fun stuff. Whenever I'm involved into it, but but esports, man, that's just so entertaining and interesting to me. I know that for myself, I decided that I was gonna watch the entire LCS, which is the League of Legends spring split going on. So that's the North American teams all playing to win the summer split, or it's the spring split. And the finals had just aired this last Sunday, and that was while we were doing church, so I couldn't watch that, and I was okay with that. But I've been watching all the VODs and just being able to watch it. I think I'm already in game 2 of 5, so we'll see. Fingers crossed, who's gonna win. I've really been enjoying the esports scene. It was this season that I was like, I'm going to commit to actually watching the entirety, all the games, not just even if it's a team that I like. And that's probably changed me to where I'm probably going to do that next split, or I'm going to do that on this next game. And I just really enjoy watching it because I know there's other people out there who like watching baseball, basketball, and football on TV. I like watching guys choose random champions and go in a 5v5 and see who can destroy the Nexus first. That sounds super nerdy. But even in all from the coronavirus going on, I don't know if you've seen all there's even things like NASCAR are starting to go esports.
Yep.
Where they're having their own, it's like a racing simulation, and they're in like the stock car with a steering wheel, pedals, like they have all the tactile things, but it's like 4 screens in front of them instead of being in an actual car. So everybody's trying to figure out their way of getting their sport fix. I've heard of a couple people whenever they come to wanting to watch basketball or football, they just buy the most recent 2K20 or Madden NFL 20, and they'll just set the computers on super hard against each other and just sit down and watch the game. I've heard from more than 2 people that they've just sat down for 2 hours just watching computers playing a game.
Wow.
So I was like, man, I guess they just really wanted that entertainment.
Man, okay, I can appreciate that. I'm not to that point yet, but I'm probably not that far off.
Well, I'm saying, yeah, I know you're FIFA, man. Just see what happens when 2 computers just fight each other.
Fair enough.
Oh boy.
Well, so, part of the gaming world, there is the drink.
Okay.
All gamers
Oh no.
have a drink.
Oh no.
And so I know, so correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm a little bit older than you. I know
Yeah.
when I was growing up, Mountain Dew was the drink for real gamers. And they had particularly the Live Wire franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying for you now, choose it or lose it. Is Mountain Dew the gamer's drink of choice?
I'm losing it.
Okay.
So I also grew up with Mountain Dew also being the gamer drink, quote unquote, as I'm like, because what they started to do whenever I had started getting my an Xbox and started playing games was on the cans of Mountain Dew would be codes for XP boosts.
Mm-hmm.
And then the horrible thing was that if you bought Mountain Dew and then a bag of Doritos, both of those would have the XP boosts. And then you would take both of those codes and you'd have like 24 hours, like a week's worth of double XP that you can play from your Mountain Dew drink. But the reason why I'm losing it is because nowadays I've seen everybody switching to this thing called G Fuel, which I think is more of a... I haven't consumed it myself, but I do watch a lot of like Twitch streams and YouTube streams. I'm all about watching streams, and everybody is pimping out this G Fuel, which is kind of like a powder, kind of like a Kool-Aid, like if you were gonna make your own pitcher of lemonade. Mm-hmm. But it's the G Fuel, which is literally stands for Gamer Fuel. So I would say nowadays Mountain Dew got pushed aside. I think they may have some XP boosts every now and then, but I've also seen XP boost on things of Pop-Tarts nowadays. So I don't know how exclusive it is to have that anymore. But Gamer Fuel seems to be the thing of choice. I know that there's a kid in our youth group that consumes Gamer Fuel on a regular basis. I don't know if we want to name names, but I know that there is one out there that would probably agree with me on this Gamer Fuel.
I could believe that. I would definitely... I didn't know which it would be. I would definitely say lose it to Mountain Dew being the gamer drink of choice now. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know what it was, because I knew, like you said, all the XP bonuses... just the way it was advertised. And we still see a lot of advertisement to that effect. I think in some of their own commercials, but even in some other ones with video games, having Mountain Dew team up with them. But I was thinking it was more of an energy drink these days, or more of something that wasn't a soda that would still be able to get you some energy, still get you some. Caffeine more than likely to keep you revved up and highly alert.
And that's exactly what that Gamer Fuel does. It's not carbonated in any sense, so it's not soda anymore. It's like you're getting a nice caffeine boost, basically, to keep those eyes from never blinking.
Yeah, definitely seemed like, it started with Mountain Dew, and now it's transitioned to, it sounds like G Fuel, which I figured would happen, just because as time goes on, you're going to have, Powerade was originally designed to be a Kool-Aid competitor, and Kool-Aid was kicking its butt, and so it modified and was like, well, there's no one competing with Gatorade, so we're going to switch over and be an energy drink. We're going to be for athletes.
Yeah.
And they made that transition, and they've done a lot better there than where they started. But with that now, Mountain Dew is a soda, got its niche. And now there's a new niche of transition for that, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to transition a little bit for this last little topic. It's off of the game. Well, it's off of video games. Fair enough. It's still on games. I would like to know what your take is in youth group doing a messy food night.
Oh, God.
And that way... Okay, so I know that I have personal experience with this. So do you need an example? Have you all ever done a messy food night or something to that before?
Please clearly define, because I've had multiple experiences, and they all have looked a little different. So you give me your example.
So, my example is The night began with taking a jar of peanut butter, rubbing it on a student's face, and then throwing goldfish onto them to see how many we can stick.
Cool.
And then the night ends with army crawling through a slip and slide of syrup and flour to get to a container of flour at the end, to where in the container of flour you need to find a marshmallow with your mouth.
Yep. Okay.
That kind of very messy game night. What's your take on that when it comes to youth?
Oh man, so that hits way too close to home. Because I know I participated a little bit of that in my youth group.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot. The one that stood out to me the most was having to scarf down chocolate pudding with pantyhose over your face.
Oh, what?
Yeah, you had to eat it through the pantyhose.
Oh!
Yeah, so it has its place in life. It has its place in youth ministry, and I will not say we would never do it. However, I have always had a hard time justifying the budget it takes to put some of that together, because I did one in a D-Now weekend. We had a huge food fight, and one of the biggest expenses was not just the food to feed the people, but it was the food to provide for this giant said mess.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a budget, that eats up a lot of budget, and if it's not done right, it requires a lot of cleanup, which adds a lot more hours, and so...
Choose it or lose it, man.
Man, I'm going to say lose it for me.
I get that. I think, so I'm coming from a very privileged position to where every messy food game night that I've been a part of, I was not leading. I was participating.
You just got to enjoy it.
So I'm going to choose it because I had a lot of fun. And most of the cleanup, because we were trying to be smart about it, we would put like the giant flood tarps around, and so that way at the end of the night we would just get the corners, just bring it all together, and then you just take that to the dumpster. Like, goodbye, we don't need anything that was in that is gone. Mm-hmm. I will say, I'm gonna choose it, and even though I've done one of those messy game nights and I've ended the night by vomiting in a corner because of how bad it got, but boy, that's some fun times. And especially the look on your parents' face when they pick you up from that event, to where they look at you, but then they smell you, and then they go, why? And at the conversation of, no, you're going to sit in the trunk. No, you're not in the seats. You're not even in the back seat. You're going in the trunk.
Oh, Lord, I'm hearing that we're going to have to do this just so you can experience the other side.
Yeah, I've only gotten to participate, so I'm going to choose it. Those are some fun, messy game nights. Goodness gracious.
Okay. So, this is the last one, right?
Yeah, I think that was it.
Okay, so I'm bringing you my last one. And I thought about something bringing controversial, and one of the best things in my mind, it's controversial.
Oh no.
Choose it or lose it. Double stuffed Oreos. Did you like the hype? Did you like how I brought this up?
I'm gonna choose that. I'm totally choosing. I am a man that will take a double stuffed Oreo. No, sorry. I'm a man that would take 3 double stuffed Oreos and will take the cookie off of all 3 and combine that stuff, put it together, and then fit that in my mouth. I love that Oreo cream. I've actually seen Oreo packaging that's just cream.
Seriously. I've heard of that. I've never seen it.
I've seen it at convenience stores, and I'm not going to tell you that I bought it.
Yeah, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
I am a double stuffed man. If I see a family pack of double stuffed, I will grab it. But I will say this. Have you had the Oreo Thins?
That is what I would choose.
That is some good stuff, too, because that's the perfect ratio of cookie to cream.
Mm-hmm.
Double stuff is when you're just all about that cream, and I'm all about that cream sometimes.
Nice. Yeah, that's where I was going with this. Was I would lose double stuff. I mean, when I was younger, I enjoyed it, but the older I'm getting, the less I like all of that filling.
Mm-hmm.
I like more of that balance and ratio, like you said, and I really like those thin, the thin ones where it's, particularly the ones with mint.
Uh-huh.
Have you had that?
It's kind of like a Thin Mint from the Girl Scouts, yeah.
Almost, yeah. Girl Scouts, please don't take out Oreo. Yeah, no, I mean, so I really like those. I can eat a couple of those. I'm happy. The last time I ate the double stuffed, I ate a couple of those, and I felt sick.
Well, I gotta ask, when you did the double stuff, did you do it with or without milk?
Of course, milk. I mean, I think it's a sin if you eat Oreos without milk. I'm pretty sure that's the 11th commandment.
Well, I'm just making sure, because when you add milk into a double stuff, that's a whole different flavor profile going on with there. Now, when you're doing it plain, that's a different story. Still delicious, in my opinion. But with milk, brings it up even higher.
Well, fair enough.
Well, that's some of our more controversial topics for this first episode. Man, this was lots of fun. I enjoyed this.
I enjoyed this too, Bo. It was good.
Yeah. I guess I would say I apologize for any background noises that were made throughout the thing. We're doing this just in my bedroom. We have construction going on right outside.
I almost choose that as your choose it or lose it. Are you choose it or lose it, the house that is being turned into a vibrating home because of all the construction around us?
I'm definitely going to lose it.
Yeah, I know. It was like, okay.
I'll kick that across the street.
Dang, man. Well, yeah. They are working across the street too.
Oh boy, but yeah, but thank you for bearing with us. If you're still listening, thank you so much. There's a couple things though that we would like to add. Is we're hoping to do this hopefully somewhat often. We're not sure if it's going to be a weekly thing or a bi-weekly thing. We're probably going to just do this when it works best for both of us just to come together. Most likely it'll be a weekly or at least bi-weekly thing. But we really would love your help knowing what you guys would like the title of this to look like. Now, we have a couple ideas of what this could be. I know that I had suggested the youth worker burrito.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I like burritos.
I mean, who doesn't?
There's also me and Matt both are enjoying watching Community lately.
Absolutely.
So we came up with Matt and Jordan in the morning. Which is an option. But in order to get y'all's opinion, we're going to make a poll and we're going to put a link in like the description of this video. Feel free to go onto that link and then just see I think maybe it'd be like 6 or 7 names.
Yeah, I think about 6 or so. And this is just a part where we want to hear directly from you guys and you guys having an impact on this show because we're wanting to do this again for you. To benefit you and to help you in some things. And so we're going to want some feedback. And what better way to start with is we want your questions and comments. Yeah. But B, you name it. We've come, like we said, we've come up with a few. You'll see that in the poll. But it's just, again, something to hopefully pull you guys in and help this to be of interest, help this to be of value. And man, we're looking forward to seeing what we're going to be called. I personally, I definitely lead to Matt and Jordan in the morning.
That's just a pretty good one. Especially
since we've been watching Community. If you haven't seen Community, you need to go to community college and then you need to see it. Because that makes all the difference.
Yes, it's about community college, which we've both attended.
Exactly. I was just about to say, we both attended it, we see it, and we're like, yep, not that exact same experience, but... Oh my gosh. So much fun and very, very funny.
Oh boy. Well, yeah, so just know at the end of the day, we're making this for you guys. So for those of you that are listening, for our own youth students at Solid Rock Church, We want to make whatever is best for you guys. So if y'all have any questions, if y'all have an idea for a name, please just leave it down in the comments. You probably maybe have mine or Matt's phone number as well if you want to reach out that way, if you feel more comfortable. But like anything you put down at the comments, we will for sure read. And if it's a question, we would love to add it as soon as possible, because we want to be able to answer questions that you guys have. This
And
is
the
for
sooner
y'all.
you do that, the better, because if we're doing this every week, gives us some time to kind of look over some of the answers, some questions, and just be a little bit better prepared. So
Yeah.
make sure that as soon as you see this, drop that note, drop that comment, and man, we look forward to seeing you guys hopefully again next week. If you have any questions or comments you want to talk to us at youth group, let us know, because we'll be seeing you guys here real soon when we're doing our virtual youth group. And I think that's just about it.
I think that's just about it. Well, feel free to like the video. This is going to go on to our YouTube page, so feel free to subscribe because we'll be placing it right back here next week. And don't forget to go down into the description and vote in the poll for what the name would be. But yeah,
We'll see you guys next time. Cheers.
cheers.